Hannah! Hannah!
You're disgusting!
Your issue with me and
my best friend
is driven by culturally infused female competition. Can we please go home? Dry each other off using friction? Got a girlfriend, Charles?
No.
Play in the field,
My therapist suggested that I attend a program for love addiction.
No, listen.
Sam, I cheated on you.
Was it my brother?
You know I'm not attracted to your brother.
Who is better than my brother? Of all the gin joints.
Jay.
Yes.
It's been, what, 12 years? The guy I lost my virginity to was at my sex addicts meeting. Were you just in that meeting?
Oh, yeah. Had to get out of there, though. It's making me super horny. Hey, I'm on Facebook. Weird thing to say out loud. You're gonna have to explain this to me. I mean, you're a catch. You got a strong vocabulary. You look dynamite in a tank top.
We just spent the entire evening talking about how we screw up every sexual relationship. We gotta just be friends.
Okay, but then we gotta come up with a system.
We come up with a safe word if we're having sexual tension.
You pick it.
Avocado.
No, it's too sexual. It's too
Avocado is too sexual.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you gotta see the way I eat an avocado. You'd be like, do that to me. Will you take drugs with me and go to a kid's birthday party?
I literally thought you'd never ask.
You guys high.
We're actually rolling.
So that's how Henry was conceived.
Okay, who wants to learn to dance?
Who's the choreographer? Jake's friend Lainey, who he really wants to
Get deep up in there.
So she's single? Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
This guy is taking up emotional real estate that could be occupied by a real option.
I'm Chris. This is Paul.
Are you really using your kid to hit on my friend?
Shut up. Ignore him. He's on drugs.
Are you guys sleeping with each other?
No.
Oh, good. Oh, my God, good.
Do you want to talk about it?
Talk about what?
We're not a couple, but we act like one.
When you start sleeping with people, you risk losing. Never slept with someone I wasn't willing to lose.
For the first time, I'm a little bit optimistic. You might not become that creepy guy.
Virginity.
To virginity.
Naomi still has her anal virginity.
That's not true. A lot of guys have been up there, just not you.
Guys, thanks so much for being here.
Check.
Thanks for having us.
Give us a second. Jason wants to check.
Perfect. It's perfect.
Oh, great.
How did
Thank
it go?
you.
Is it all right?
I missed sound check, so I wanted to make sure we just got it in.
We heard that you were like a sound guy, so we made sure that the mic was at
Audiophile.
perfect audio.
Audiophile,
That's
yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it's called.
No,
He's got taste.
Pedophile. No, auto. What is it?
Audio.
Okay, audio.
Stick with I think audio. Pedo sounds bad.
Yeah, no, it's bad.
Sleep. Congratulations on the film. It's wonderful. It's a really refreshing take on a romantic comedy, and I love that you have faith and belief in the romantic comedy genre because it takes a lot of balls to have faith and belief in that genre.
Thank you.
So did you fear going into it that you might have to adjust it, that you might have to reshape it for something else?
No, I mean, we really approached it very honestly and authentically. I mean, the story's really based on my personal love life.
I'm flattered you looked at me and said we. I was like, oh, this is all you. This is like, I just memorized some words and then said them while standing in the right place. Like, that's the different thing.
Well, yeah. Well, you did a little bit more than that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Please, but go on. I don't mean to
You
interrupt
jumped in front of some cars.
I did.
Yeah,
I did my
that was
own-
pretty
Holy,
amazing.
that's right. That scene. Did you?
That's all him.
Are you serious?
Well, I mean, yeah, it wasn't that impressive. If you were to rewatch it, you'd be like, oh, that's all it was? Like, I mean, but yeah, no, that was me.
People really think it's done with like CGI or something.
Well, that's the world we live in.
And
these
I was
days.
like, no,
look
we just
very
sat
close.
him really close to a car and had them drive by, and he sold it.
The elbow thing.
Oh, the elbow thing, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's in there. There's this part in the movie where this car, just in the middle of a confrontation with this gal at the beginning of the film, my elbow gets clipped by a taxi that was in the script, which I loved. It was like page 6. And I was like, oh, what a fun detail! Like you never see that. Like it doesn't stop anything. I don't go to the hospital because of that. Like it just happens, and we kept it in there.
Yeah.
And the car was like that far away. But
It's shot really
movie
well because
magic.
I had a moment where I was like, how did they do that? That looked very real. Did he get clipped?
The magic of filmmaking.
We should
watch a
just
lot
say
of
that it
movies.
really happened.
Yeah, we should be like
Midnight Cowboy, like
Look,
when
it was,
he's
yeah. I'm walking here.
yeah.
Except you didn't say anything. You just went, it got me.
Well, I wasn't written anything.
Yeah, one thing you need to know is that Jason never ad-libs.
You're gonna eat your hair.
He says
Be careful.
everything. He says everything word for word.
Yep, that's my training.
That's the craft.
Yep.
That's the craft.
It's from learning all 10 commandments and the Bill of Rights, and I've memorized it and I say it
Do those sometimes slip out when you're doing the dialogue for a movie? Oh, those are the commandments. Let me put those away.
all the time. Honor
Yeah.
thy mother and father.
Oh yeah.
The right
Super
to-
weird during the sex scenes. It was so bizarre.
Right to bear arms, which sounds like a pickup line when you first say it, but then eventually it reveals itself to be anything but. Yeah. What about the movie?
Oh God. Yeah. Sorry.
Leslie,
We're
so
here.
Leslie, how was
just love
this?
hanging out with him.
How was this based on your personal life? What was going on?
I had a friend, a guy friend, who I think just sort of had the same level of depression. Like neither of us were very dateable, and so we would hang out with each other all the time. Like we'd go out to movies and we played video games together and we'd go to brunch. And then there was one time we were at brunch where we were making fun of couples. That was like our favorite thing to do, was be like, oh, look at these people taking the relay out for some sun, or like, look at this, like they're taking the relay out for a walk, like just making fun of people that were happy.
And because that's what you do.
As you do when you're miserable. And it occurred to me, I was like, oh my gosh, like we look like that. Like I know that sounds so simple, but it just had never occurred to me that we looked like a couple. And then of course, I started asking myself the question of like, why am I still single? Like, what are my problems? Like, what are his problems? Like all of this kind of stuff. And so I decided to tell the story of two people that were essentially afraid of intimacy becoming intimate with each other. And one of the ways they do that is by not having sex with each other. They decide basically to get to know each other before they engage in a sexual relationship. And as they get deeper and deeper in that intimacy, I think it becomes harder and harder to commit to a romantic relationship because as Jason says in the trailer, he never slept with somebody he wasn't willing to lose. I mean, like whenever you embark on any kind of romance, if you want to take like you said, a leap of faith, to fall in love. Oh, well, about the romantic comedy, and I think that the romantic comedy genre is a little bit like that too. You just have to take a little bit of a leap of faith. You have to have some hope, you have to have a little part of you that thinks that love actually could exist and that you could be someone that it happens to. And that's scary. And I think that's where the characters sort of end up being.
Well, I think what's great about this is that the characters in this change for the better. Usually in romantic comedies, people don't necessarily change. They give up something to have a relationship. That's generally it. Where in this, it's kind of like they're not necessarily giving anything up. They're just changing over the course of time. And this relationship that brings them together changes them for the better.
And I think it's a love story, but it's a love story about falling in love with yourself. Like they teach each other to love themselves. And I think that's the greatest gift you can give somebody. Like even before you're, having amazing sex with them, or like you get the kind of commitment that you want, or whatever it might be. But like to really show someone how to love themselves is like, I think the greatest gift you can give somebody.
Yeah, faults and all, or warts and all.
Yeah, warts and all, yeah.
Yeah, where it's like, oh, I'm being 100% my authentic self, and I think I'm a turd, but this person that I think is wonderful doesn't think I'm a turd. Oh, maybe I'm not a turd. And that's act 1, 2, and 3 right there.
You're welcome.
I'm a turd. Maybe I'm not a turd. I guess I'm not a turd. Boom. Boom, boom, boom.
Boom, boom, boom.
My fear would be once you allow someone to see you as the turd, then trying to get them to be sexually attracted to you.
Well, there's that too.
That's the big fear.
Yeah.
It's like, I know you. There's no, I've already gotten to the point where there's no mystery here.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of what the film's about too, that, sex is really, sometimes it can be very much about illusions. You know what I mean? Like you can be attracted to people that are really bad for you, or you can be in love with somebody, but really, it's lust or it's fantasy that you have of that person. I think Jake and Lainey, Allison and Jason's characters, I think they really show each other who they are. And I think the question of the movie is like, can you fall in love with that person?
Jason, what drew you to this film? I mean, obviously working with Leslye, who's an incredible playwright, and her last film was wonderful as well. But what drew you to this character?
Well, that was the initial thing. Working with Leslye, we had met before you had made Bachelorette.
That's right. Yeah.
And we had a 45-minute lunch that lasted 4 hours and 45 minutes, and then she went off and made that awesome movie. I went off and made Hall Pass. Like you go your paths. And I think I love that movie, and I'm glad I did it. But at the same time, different movies. And then we came back around and we ran into each other, and so it was that initial. It was working with someone that you like and you respect and you hit it off with. And then when I read the first draft, I was just really, the word that's come up time and again when speaking about it, is just really flattered by the way Leslye wrote the character, and then more so the fact that she thought I could play it. Because in my regular life as a human being, we have all sorts of things that we don't get to show people or want to show people, or cameras or whatnot. And then for someone to sort of see something in you that you think you have to give, but you would never thought in a million years someone would ever want you to give it to people, like an audience.
What was that?
More evocative of a role. I know I personally, even when trying to cross the border with a bunch of drugs with a fake family, like in We're the Millers, I'm believing every frickin' second of it, but it doesn't necessarily, it's not received in that way. So then when you're playing something as, a smaller budget, an independent film, and you're declaring, your platonic love for someone, that's nothing I've been asked to do in Horrible Bosses 1 or 2. And probably not in the third one if that were ever to happen. But so you see these things. What's it? No, yeah, I might ask for it now. Yeah, I might what does my character love in Horrible Bosses? And I was just really flattered by that. And then the fact that we were able to get, what we already had, Will Ferrell and Adam McKay producing, and Jessica Elbaum, who I've been friends with for a while on the production side. So behind the camera, you're being taken care of. And then we had great, I knew Leslye was going to put together a great group of people for the crew. And then once Allison came on, it was really just, one thing complementing another, and I just felt lucky to be in the middle of it.
Did you know Allison before working with her on this? Did you guys have to do chemistry tests or anything like that, or was it?
Not before. We did a chemistry read right before we started, and but I'd never met her. I'd only known her from Community and from Mad Men. And then the odd thing that we've just sort of realized in doing press for the movie was that I'm old friends with Dan Harmon. I've known him since like the mid '90s. We did this thing called Comedy Sports together, him in Milwaukee and me in Kansas City. And then when I was single, and I think Allison was single, I remember Dan and I just having a conversation. I was like, "Oh, is she cool?" He's like, "Yeah," because she's super cute. And then he was like, he texted Allison like months later, "Hey, would you be interested in me setting you up with Jason?" She's like, "Yeah, sure. He seems nice." Now at that point, I had met my now fiance. A few weeks later, she will meet her fiance. So then, this whole like courtship got to manifest itself in a fake relationship, but had at least Dan Harmon's blessing. So Dan Harmon and Headland, 2020.
Yeah, that's how I've always wanted it to be.
Right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Really.
Just a couple quiet.
Just quiet, chill, sort of like
people, just giving their blessing.
Not at all tortured or
not
anything.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Just perfectly. So yeah, so that was it. So then when we read the scene, you would.
So funny, I didn't know that. That's
because you saw
so
when we
awesome.
first met, you.
Yeah.
You were there.
Oh my gosh, when they first met, I thought you had said you had not met her.
Right.
But I was like, oh, he must have lied to me, or not lied to me, but I was like, you must have forgotten meeting her or something because you guys hit it off so quickly.
I just had a hunch about her. I just had a hunch about her from watching those two shows where I was like, oh, she's really good. I just thought she was. That's obvious to I know millions of people, but even for this, I remember being like, oh, I think she could be, even before she got there, and then once she got there.
And then once she got there, it was game over.
Yeah.
I remember when I first saw Community for the first time, seeing her in it, and being like, oh, who's she? She is great.
Yeah.
And I'm a big Community fan as well. I've seen every season a couple times, and she was somebody that I always wanted to work with, and
but again, didn't get to show any of the kind of stuff she shows, even just small pops in this film, even in the trailer that you got to see in Community or even Mad Men, because much more buttoned down. Here, much more living out loud and open, and we get to see so many moments with her by herself that she's just it's so heartbreaking to see. Another human being going through this pain that she's clearly
and it's
going through.
It's really hard to make a film because you have to watch it 1,000 times. You really have to sit there and watch scene after scene after scene over and over again and make the choices about the dumbest stuff. Do you want this music to come in here? Or do you want this? And it's of course I'm a filmmaker. I love doing that. That's my job. But I have to say, watching Allie and Jason, it's actually, I really enjoyed watching you guys over and over again. The performances they do in this film, there are just so many different levels to that. It's a comedy and they both have comedy backgrounds, but I prefer to work with comedic actors because they, I think, in my experience, comedic actors really understand tone in a way that's, you guys understand it in shorthand, if that makes sense. You guys know that a scene can go from being very funny and that there's a joke to being very sad and very intense or just very realistic, And so I like to write stories about good people that do bad things and bad people that sometimes do good things. And so to have actors that are willing to play on so many different levels is really a joy. And it's something that I feel very grateful for, that you guys really went all in on it.
The gratefulness is all mine. The gratefulness is all mine. No, you're welcome. I don't know.
You're welcome.
Now, having all that great layered footage to play with, does that make your job obviously easier to watch, but does that make it harder to edit? Because
yeah,
at that point, you go in on a different day and you have a different mood, and you're like, oh wait, it should be like this now.
Well, they also give you. I mean, like you guys gave me so much stuff. I was watching. I don't know if it was the commentary on The Departed, or if it was just an interview I was watching with Scorsese talking about Jack Nicholson, where, because Jack Nicholson came from like a B movie acting sort of background, he would give the director, whether it was Roger Corman, where he started out, or Martin Scorsese, eventually won the Oscar for that movie, he would give him many different things in one take. So he would give him the end of the scene, and then he would give him sort of a look, and then he might ad-lib a joke, and then he would do something else. So that, because he came from knowing that when you make a film independently, you have to have a lot of options. And it was really fun working with Jason, because he worked almost exactly the same way.
That's all I need to hear. Me and Nicholson.
So you
forever fused.
I think we can maybe end there, Jason. That sounds like a good enough spot of any.
We should apologize to Jack Nicholson.
I want to say I'm sorry, Jack Nicholson.
Sorry, Jack. We know you're out there watching.
We know you're watching
right?
us. We know you care about this movie coming out on September 11th.
Hey, I got a Google alert with my name on it. Oh, hell, not again.
Sudeikis.
World's greatest, most apathetic Nicholson impression right there.
Right there. You didn't even try. You didn't even try.
No, didn't do eyebrows or anything. No, but I like that. Because we always did that like at improv shows. It was always like you try to get a blackout at Second City, meaning like they bring the lights out. So the audience is out there, and then you're doing improv scenes, and then you try to come in and have that final line that gives the audience a big laugh, and then the lights go out. And I did have a certain, I don't know if I think it was a OCD that I just wanted the thing to be over, end on a make, like from my basketball days. Like you leave the gym after you make a shot, and sort of had that same mentality with improv, and I guess it's maybe translating into film.
It's good though. It's good. Thank you.
Right,
yeah.
Working with Leslye as a playwright, now the script here is beautifully written. You have an improv background, you have a comedy background. Oftentimes when you talk to sort of comedy actors, they say they get onto a set and they're expected to bring their own funny, bring their own improvisations. When you're working with Leslye, do you not have to do that at all? Or are you really coming in with a beautifully prepared script ready for you to just handle line by line?
Yeah, I mean, it's not... in your defense and in your praise, it's not like what you hear stories about, like someone like Aaron Sorkin, who's very, he wants it done by the letter, or like friends of mine that were on Mad Men that I mean, and they're yeah, right, just or I mean, any of the greats. Yeah, can we swear?
Somebody worked for him or something.
It is the internet. It's 90% porn. We should be allowed to swear. It's the whole reason it exists, so we can masturbate into our phones. But the answer is no. You don't have to improvise much, but it's so open and egoless to let you make it your own, like put it in your own mouth, And then again, having a knack of being surrounded by really funny people my entire life, and then once getting to do it professionally at SNL, like being able to rewrite or write quickly in someone else's voice is something that I really enjoy doing. So there's movie references that like weren't in there, but are very much part of these characters' existence and part of our existence that then just as a simple example, can put in the film that I know that's something that Leslye would have probably written had she had, the references I had growing up specifically versus the references she had. And since I sort of had the final say, at least when we were on camera, of what Jake was into, he liked Beverly Hills Cop as opposed to some, amazing, like Third Man, some great like reference film like that
I
Leslye
think sums us up.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's like Beverly Hills Cop,
yep.
Third Man.
Yeah, right. And so, you don't have to. You're just sort of like in it, but it's so plotted so well, and it shows all the work emotionally, like why this person is that way, and that's all been thought out. And then the ones that aren't fully thought out are left for us to sort of decide, the two of us or the three of us. Because one of my favorite things to talk about, although I haven't had much of a chance, is Leslye coming up after one take, two take, and then the third take kind of coming up, and I'll just stare into the vacant space here. But it's kind of like, I'll stare at you actually. It'll be like kind of like, okay. Right? and then walk away. And you're just kind of like, yeah. And it's just communicated with eyes, and it's just like this emotion where we're kind of like, you should just sort of say wanting. And then you leave, and you're like wanting more, and then you end up, doing the scene, whatever wanting means to you. And that's more of the idea, which is just as important to the writing as it is the actual, this verb follows this noun and this predicate and all that jive, So it's great. It's someone that knows exactly what they want and where they're headed and why they're going that way, and then how you go about getting there as well is the surprises that she loves to dig out and find and reintroduce us to them when we get to see the movie finally.
Yeah.
The film has, I was telling you this earlier, one of my favorite, possibly my favorite ecstasy sequences or Molly sequences in
everybody
a
does
movie.
Molly, yeah, or they do Molly, not everybody. Just
No, we didn't do that as an entire
I
crew.
didn't do any Molly.
I feel like it's a great summation of kind of the movie, because when that scene is set up, there are so many ways that could go because of how we've seen this drug handled in other movies, right?
Yeah.
Lights are flashing, a bad hookup or this, and it doesn't go in any of those directions. It takes a very different, surprising, realistic turn.
Right.
Where did that come from? Talk to me about writing that scene.
Well, I think it came from the fact that it happens about middle of the movie and in the middle of the film. If any of you are budding screenwriters, you usually want to put in something that feels a little bit of a high, and then you sort of come down for your second act. And so I thought, I need sort of a fun sequence, for lack of a better word. I hate the word fun, but I'm going to use it anyway, goddammit. And am I allowed to swear, or what's
You are
up?
allowed
Okay,
to
great.
swear,
Okay.
yes.
I just
I know,
realized I
checked
was
it
like,
twice. No,
oh,
we're
okay,
good.
great. Okay, good.
I'm allowed to too. We're all
You're
allowed
allowed?
to. Yeah.
Okay, great.
I'm not sure if I
maybe
think
not.
maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll see. But yeah, I kept, something that I said over and over again to the actors as we were working is that the bad guy, I having written a movie where everyone was like, all of your characters are mean people and we don't like them because they're bad guys, I liked to say while we were shooting Sleeping with Other People that the only bad guy in this movie is shame. That's really is the feeling of shame, which comes with dating, which comes with sex, which comes with growing up and becoming an adult. And so I wanted to write a sequence that was just totally free from shame. Like there was just no shame in it at all, in the best way. And what I came up with was Alison Brie dancing in her bikini to David Bowie with a bunch of little kids, and that just seemed like heaven to me. Honestly, that was the best thing I could come up with.
It may replace the national anthem. Like just the entire sequence. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
It's up for debate.
Exactly.
But yeah, and it was. I never realized that. That makes total sense. I don't think we talked about that, but I'm glad I didn't know. Because I remember just being like, oh, we could care less. We're around our best friends. We take drugs at this little kids party, and Andrea Savage and Jason Mantzoukas play our best friends, and they're not judging us really. It's just it's very, very effortless, easy breezy.
And I think I just don't. I don't know. I don't judge my characters. I really love my characters so much. And so I just wanted to put them in a situation where they, the audience might go like, oh my gosh, here comes the judgment, and then not deliver it.
Or here come consequences.
Or here come the
Anytime
consequences.
drugs are taken in movies, there's a consequence or a judgment.
Or people have stuff growing out of their face. There's you never get to see it really so much from our point of view as the drug takers. Yeah. You only get to see people responding to us.
And that happened a lot with Bachelorette as well. My first film, what I think people were surprised that characters would do cocaine and that they wouldn't all go to jail or rehab at the end of the movie. And I was like, I'm pretty sure there are people out there that do cocaine and
I've always been
are pretty chill. They're okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't really hang out with any of them, but
a lot of politicians.
Yeah.
Mostly. Politicians and clergy. They know.
Yeah.
They know.
They know who they are.
Clergies love blow.
I know.
They are.
It comes in that little wafer. It's so easy.
Yeah, it's just really easy to get down there.
Also, if I'm not allowed to swear, I think I just went over the line with that one. That was the one.
That usually happens when we're promoting this film.
Talk about casting this movie, because outside of Jason and Allison, you also have, as you said, Mantzoukas in this, Andrea Savage.
Yes.
Some of my favorite people on the periphery of comedy movies all the time. Can you talk about casting them?
Well, it's just, for me, it's exactly the same. Adam Scott was in my first film, Bachelorette. I'm literally obsessed with him. I'm obsessed with him playing the guy that broke my heart for some reason.
He is so good, and he doesn't get the chance to do it enough. He is so good at playing an asshole.
He's such a jerk in this movie, guys. I can't tell you. It's frightening. It's he will haunt your dreams.
The little pencil mustache.
That little mustache, all of it is so intense. But Amanda Peet is someone that I've just been dying to work with. I've seen a lot of her theater work as well, like being a playwright here in New York. And Adam Brody was somebody that I just saw him in my friend Susanna Vogel's film. I mean, obviously he's Adam Brody, he's a big star, but I saw him in my friend's film, and I was so taken with him that I literally begged him to do one scene in the movie. I mean, he's so amazing. Like, he comes and just sort of mic drops, you know, like this scene at the beginning, and really nails again that sort of like a situation that is so sad. It is so sad, and yet he still minds the comedy that's in it. I don't, you know, I don't want to give away too much. I guess.
Natasha Lyonne. Like, I personally don't like watching myself, and I love watching this movie because of Allison and everybody else that Leslye and Allison Jones, the casting director, you know, hired for it, because it's one of those things that part of the homage, I think, towards the rom-com and the rom-coms that we grew up with, as much as the ones that, you know, even preceded our existence, all had great supporting characters, and you wrote them that way and then cast them that way, and it's so fun to watch because it feels like an ensemble movie, even though there's only, you know, 2 faces and names on the poster.
And Allison Jones did help us cast the film, but the New York was done by Jen Houston, who did Orange is the New Black and Girls, and did Bachelorette as well.
Of course, yeah.
I feel like as a fan, you're watching the movie and you're just consistently in every scene, just kind of like, oh my God, yes.
Yeah,
Billy Eichner
shows up.
That's right.
I forgot Billy Eichner's in the movie.
At a sex addict meeting. I mean, it's just one thing after another.
I remember, like, Jen was like, "Who do you see as like the guy at the sex addicts meeting?" And I was like, "Billy Eichner. I think if we could get Billy to come in and do something, that'd be really amazing."
Just yell at us for a little bit.
Just yell at us for a while.
Happily.
I think we have time for audience Q&A. Does anyone have a question out here in the audience?
We'll provide the A.
Hi, so this is for Jason. You kind of touched on this earlier, but can you talk about your time on SNL and how an experience like that differs or compares or prepares you for time on a set like this one?
Sure. I mean, I mean, I'm not an authority on it at all, but I've felt like SNL is one of the best, as far as I'm concerned, the best place if you're good with metaphor to learn show business. Because you think about, like, every Monday, we come in there with an idea, whether that's an idea for a pilot, an idea for a screenplay, whatever you want to take it metaphorically. Then you meet with the star. You're meeting with Sandra Bullock. You're meeting with George Clooney. You're meeting with the person that you're trying to convince them of your idea in front of the studio head or the network executive, president, that being Lauren. And then Tuesday, you got to write it and maybe try to sell it to them a little bit more. And then Wednesday, you read it in front of everybody, hope that it goes well. Thursday, if it goes well, you got to then, you know, pick the costumes, pick the set, do rewrites to try to help, you know, make the star happy, make the studio happy, still keep your own artistic integrity. Friday, you rehearse it all and, like, block it and, all that stuff. And you also get to cast it, you get to pick, which cast member is in which part and all that. And then Saturday you do it and you see what happens. Either it opens to 6% on Rotten Tomatoes at the dress rehearsal, or 97%. Then it eats shit on the live show and gets cut on air or whatever the case may be. And you have that every single week. So, but for my 10 years there, I did that like over 200 times and paid every little bit of attention I could each week and give a damn each Monday through Wednesday, because that's the only thing I have control over. Once Thursday through Saturday happens, then you're just leaving it up to people that you hope care enough about what you did and who you are and what they want and take care of you in the editing room and et cetera, et cetera. But it's a really, really amazing experience and heartbreaking at the same time as being absolutely fulfilled. And so you get used to, the pats on the back and the pats on the ass, you just sort of learn to treat them both, kind of become indifferent to both, neither the praise nor the scolding and just, everybody can eat shit and I'm the only right person in the world. And you go out of there a little bit knowing better, because if you ever get to watch the full show and you see all those credits, it's all those people that make it possible, and it's just a big old, group love misunderstanding, shit fest. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Did you ever have like a colossal pitch bomb with one of the stars early on, where you kind of realize you're like, okay, maybe I have to up my game, or maybe this just happens?
Yeah, I think yes. I can't remember exactly what it. I know I have, but I because of the pain that you feel there, it's like childbirth. You forget it so you can do it again. I can only assume. I've never given birth to a child. But but I've taken some really difficult dumps, and so I like. You know,
You can't, you don't.
it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like, 7 pounds, 8 ounces.
I mean, it was very.
Like, no,
I mean, I can only imagine it's pretty much the same thing,
I'm
right?
trying to think what I did.
I don't want to trivialize childbirth, but it's
Not
a
that
lot
we're
like taking the
trivializing
shit.
it.
I would always start the pitch meeting like I would always start it by talking to Lauren. Lauren would have everybody. You would have 80 adults sitting on the floor in his office, and it's fantastic. It's been the same way since John Belushi, Chris Farley, Tina Fey. Everybody have sat on the floor of this office. So you're like, I'll sit on the floor. And I think by my third season, I ended up sitting on a chair because there was one open. But you just sit there, and I would always just interact with Lauren and be like, because it happened on Monday, and be like, okay, Adrian Brody's here or whomever, and then everybody's talking to him, and I would just sort of say, hey, Lauren, how was your weekend? You owe me $20 from karaoke. It was always like some joke about how we had some like personal relationship that we hung out all the time and none of the other cast did. And he would just play along with it. He would just go straight man with me and just be like, oh, no, I know. I'm sorry. I'll get that to you. I was like, it's all right. I know you're busy, but I also know you're rich, so I do need it back. It's like, it's always like this 1, 2, 3. And then I'd be like, okay, hi, movie star, Oscar winner. How about something where like, I don't know, like... whatever, and then you just sort of make it up as you go. I wasn't very good at it. I wasn't. There are people that are excellent at it. I got to watch J.B. Smoove for like 5 years do basically a 10-minute stand-up act in front of Halle Berry. I mean, it was remarkable. It was just like the things that he would keep going until he got a laugh. And sometimes it would take a while because we didn't understand what he was saying, or he was just holding off for the big one. But yeah, it's much like to your question again, it sort of teaches you to fly by the seat of your pants when you don't know exactly where you're headed.
Absolutely. Next question.
Hi, Leslye. I was just curious if you have any other pain in your life you're going to do for your next movie. And for Jason, what's your character in the movie's favorite color? I know it's a dumb question, but I just wanted to ask it anyway.
Oh, yeah. What is Jake's favorite color?
Talk about your pain first.
All right, hold on.
Yeah.
Okay.
As the guy who's thinking of the button, I'm definitely the button here.
Well, you think about that. I feel like Bachelorette so much was about being single and being a woman in a world that hates us. And so, sorry to get dark. And so, and then sleeping with other people is very much about dating and how impossible that feels, and how love is probably not something we can achieve, and yet maybe we can. Like it was sort of about that. My next film is about marriage, and it's a thriller. It's really gruesome. My fiance read it, and she was like, "I'm leaving. I'm going to stay with my mom for a while, and I will be back to collect my things in 6 weeks."
Once you do the audio commentary on the Blu-ray, I will come back.
I will come back.
Oh, yeah. Green.
Did you say green?
That's it. That's
Did you say green?
I said green.
That is. That's true.
Is it green?
I can't believe he knew that. Yeah.
Jake's favorite color
Jake's
is green?
favorite color is absolutely green. Yeah. We had conversations about it. I'm not kidding.
Did you really?
We did.
Who did? Who's
production
we?
designer? And I.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that.
Anyway.
But I think it's green.
He knew.
You mentioned with The Bachelorette, you were trying to talk about how the world kind of hates women.
Yes.
Did you find that some of the reactions to the film exemplified that a little bit?
Well, I feel like people are not used to seeing female protagonists as a conduit through which to view, certain social problems. Like I think that people are totally fine watching a film like Wolf of Wall Street, for example. Like, not to knock that film, I actually really enjoyed it. But I think that people can watch that and sort of go like, oh, I see, it's this, the decline of Western civilization and how awful is white-collar criminals, and like, look at what greed can do. Or you can watch gangster films, or you can watch, I don't know. I'm blanking on some other ways that people misbehave for some reason. But I think when it's women, I think, and they're female protagonists, I think it's hard for, I think it's just not as common to use them as symbols, basically, of something other than sexuality or domesticity. Like, I think if you start to use them as symbols of, feeling put upon, or feeling like they're, they don't really. I'll put it this way: when I did the play Bachelorette, we used to have Q&As after the performances, and there was this one guy that was like, "That was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen," and I was like, I mean, it just had not occurred to me that it would be disgusting. I mean, I could understand it being a little, confrontational, but he was like, I was so disgusted, and I don't even know why you would write that. What do these women have to be angry about? And I was like, I think if it starred Christopher Walken and was called Hurly Burly, you probably would have loved it. I mean, I don't know what to say except that this is my experience as a female moving through this world, and I'm sort of interested in writing stories about it because that's what I've wanted to do since I was a little girl, and so I'm going to do it whether or not you like it, and if you want to sit back down, and we're going to go move on to the next question. I don't know if that...
This made me just think about your earlier question about why take it on, not just working with Leslye, but I mean, then the actual script itself, I found it to be so wonderful that it was 50-50, that it was a guy's story, it was a gal's story, it was their story together. Like true romantic comedy in the sense of it's not just the wedding planner going through this, or it's not just this one individual going through this, and we're all going through their eyes. It is a genuine, 51%, 49% skewed whichever way you go with your art of feminine and masculine that I found to be incredibly responsible and something that I believe in strongly, that we don't need to keep twisting the dial from M to F, that we can, when you put them together, MF is a pretty badass thing to be, and I think it's we do share these chromosomes, and so why shouldn't our art as well? It shouldn't just all be one and all be the other, and I think it's really amazing that I felt completely taken care of as the guy's point of view from a female brain of all things.
Yeah, no, I just want to add that I totally, I think that he summed it up beautifully, but I just think it's in all of us. I think there's a male and female in all of us, and I think the more that people, within the industry sort of weight it as one or the other. I mean, honestly, probably the best comedy, what a lot of people would consider the greatest comedy of all time, Tootsie. If we pitched that now, it would be considered a female-centric movie. Do you know what I mean? Like, the more labels that you give to film, or to certain types of film, the more you're narrowing your worldview. And what we make as a culture says just as much about us as what we do. And so I feel like to just acknowledge that it's in both of us, that, there's a male part of me, there's a female part of Jason, and those parts are having fun with each other while we're making this movie, I guess is the best way to put it. I'm trying to make an analogy here.
They're giving each other a high five.
Yeah, we're just like...
They're just like, yeah.
I think we have time for one more question. Right?
A good one. Not that the others two haven't been, but I mean, this is the final one.
But this has to be like amazing.
No pressure.
This has got to be like Lee Harvey Oswald, right on the nose.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be. So my question is in regards of your improv background.
Yes.
I'm curious, what role has improv played in your career overall? And maybe, did you have any improvised moments throughout the movie that you decided to leave in the movie?
Oh, you would know that better than me, but
yeah.
But for me, improvisation, I mean, not just as for career, but like life. The idea of yes and, the idea of hearing something, supporting it, and then adding to it. I think there's so many tenets that I remember from my Chicago experience, one that I go back to all the time is the worst idea with full support crushes the best idea with no support. So there's a lot of people that can have that perfection paralysis of a blank page of we can't take off until we have the most updated version of Final Draft, until I've got all the note cards, until I got my corkboard. When I'm just time and time again, improv as both a process and as a product, as a show, teaches you that you can make something out of nothing as long as you go at it full boat. So coming out into something and judging something or second guessing it will only make you look foolish. The camera will reveal that. Your scene partner will reveal it. A collective mind of an audience will sniff it out before you even realize that, oh, I'm not being cool right now. I just look apathetic and like I'm judging, versus actually being present and being in the moment. And so I would say that it changed my life. I mean, I caught up with it. We all do it as kids. I see my little boy does it all the time. Even if it's just babbling, but he's still improvising. He doesn't know what he's going to say beforehand. And so, as long as, I just believe, the more people take improv class, the less traffic there'll be. Just yes and on the highway. As far as what was kept, you would know better than me. You sat with it for much longer than I did.
Well, I'll tell you the one that I had to cut was so sad for me. And then that might get you guys to still come see the movie. I don't want to give you the good ones because they're in the movie. But in the film, there's a scene where Jason and Allie, because they realize that they probably shouldn't sleep together, but they do still want to be friends, they do acknowledge that there's going to be, sexual tension.
Oh, attraction.
And attraction, right. And all of that. So they decide to come up with a safe word for when the other person's being sexy, so that they won't, it won't go into anything. And they start with avocado, and then Jason has to make avocado. He says it's too sexual, avocado's too sexual. And what was fun was that Allie would just yell out words, and then Jason would have to make each one sexual. That was how the improv worked, so. So he would say, I would say, in the script it was avocado, and it was like, if you see the way I eat an avocado, you'd be like, do that to me. And then there were some other ones, and there were some other ones. And my favorite one was manila envelope.
She said manila envelope.
She said manila envelope, and you were like, that's the most sexual one of all. And she was like, there's nothing sexual about manila envelope. And Jason Sudeikis goes, you lick an envelope. You stuff an envelope.
Yeah.
And after a day of watching like 100 things be made sexual, it just killed me. It killed me. It killed me to cut that one, but we had to. But it was my favorite. It was just like the moment of like, not only was it just a great joke, but it was just a testament to this guy and what he can do. It was really unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly.
It was really unbelievable.
We got to watch out for paper cuts. That's the one I didn't get to. All writing is rewriting. You just got to constantly. Well, it needed a third one. Comedy rule of threes. I messed up on that one. Oh well. Next time.
Next time.
Sequel.
Yeah, the sequel.
Slept with other people.
Well, with that scene or not, that scene is still extremely funny, guys. Congratulations on the movie.
Thank
it
you.
comes out this Friday.
It comes out this Friday.
Yeah.
All right,
in New York
go
and
see
LA.
it, guys.
Please do.
Go see it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.